Oh, my initial question was more broadly because I've heard people in different entities that I've worked with have two different versions of agendas, and I just wanted to get clarity if that's even acceptable. But the second question that I have is specifically for our district that, we have times, like for example, today, we have, questions on the board, on the budget that was clarification information. So that was provided yesterday. It was before today's meeting. So that should be, it sounds like it has to be made available to the public. Since we didn't make it available on the website yesterday, now we have to make it.
You should have a copy of it here at the meeting, but let me just say that you have to make sure that you're talking about a document that's not already protected under attorney-client privilege. In other words, it has to be a public record. So if you were to get confidential advice from your lawyer today, obviously the public's not entitled to see that.
No, it's like an expenditure of the itemization
so
of the budget.
It should be made available at the meeting, just copies,
Okay.
because the five of you have it. And the idea, again, here is that you have a question? Yes.
It's two things. Back to the agenda, because I've been asked what Trustee Z is asking. We use board docs, and one agenda is called the simple agenda.
Mm-hmm.
The second tab is a detailed agenda.
Right.
Well, the simple agenda is what's posted, and according to the Brown Act, it's 20 words or less for the subject.
Right.
Doesn't have to give you all the background information on that item.
That's exactly what I started
So
out saying.
That's what I post,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah,
only...
I wasn't aware of that.
So the
Which one
posting
is the
requirement
official?
is different than the available to the public requirement that I'm talking about.
That was my. So which one is the? So if I didn't realize we do post to. Now that I know, which one is considered the official agenda? Is it the one on the website, or is it the one that we have on?
So the one on the board that's posted for the short agenda, right? The one on the actual physical board is the official agenda. And as the secretary just pointed out, the law requires that it have a brief description of each item to be discussed, 20 words, about 20 words or more, or less, excuse me. Okay, so that's the official agenda, but what she's talking about, which is what I started talking about, was the staff reports and the rest of the information that the board needs to be able to prepare for the meeting. The Brown Act doesn't say that has to be posted, okay? What it says is if it's gonna be provided to the rest of the board ahead of the meeting, then it should be made available to your public on your website.
Okay, and then
Staff
in the
reports.
absence of providing on the website, it should be made available to.
Copies should be brought to the meeting.
What about including it in the minutes? The information.
So interestingly, the minutes, the Brown Act doesn't have a specific requirements for the minutes other than that the clerk must keep minutes, right? There's no detail in the Brown Act about what the minutes must include, whether they must be verbatim or action minutes only. Some bodies use the minutes as a way of keeping records. And so, for example, you'll hear people say, Madam Clerk, I'd like this to be made a part of the record. Please include it into the minutes. Well, it's really up to the board's discretion, usually through a policy of whether they want that to happen, whether they want to allow that to happen, because at a certain point, you have to still keep control of the business that you're doing, right? So we always recommend that our clients adopt policies that deal with these issues.
Yeah, so the reason I ask is that, I think you're right. There's requirement and there's best practices. I want to see if personally, if I ask for the information, do I take time from the board meeting asking those questions so that the public have the ability to know what those questions were since they weren't provided, hypothetically, or can we just, instead of ask each and every one of the questions, just ask for it to be included in the minutes so we don't have to take the board's time? That's where it's kind of a challenge for me, because like you said, it's construed broadly, and we have to, out of abundance of caution, act in the interest of the disclosure. So that's where I'm asking, what is the best practice in your opinion, in your years, so that not a lot of time is taken on each and every one of the questions that may have not been provided to the public.
And Trustee Zia, that really comes down to individual board members and how they decide they're going to carry out their duties to their public. For example, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've had city council members who will meet with me or the city manager before a meeting and get their questions answered, right? They have very specific factual questions about an item on the agenda. Some of them will say when they're debating or deliberating the item at the public meeting, I met with the city manager and asked the following questions. Or they may just say, I had my question answered before the meeting, and just to let the public know that they had the questions. It really is, it's almost a case-by-case basis, because if the decision that you're making is the kind of decision where you as an elected official really feel like your public has a need or has a right or really should know what it went into your decision-making process, then you have a right to say so, but it's not required. And is it a best practice? I can't say even it's a best practice, because it really depends on the nature of the decision, the nature of the questions and answers with staff.
Right.
You know?
Well, we, in the absence of providing it on the website, I mean, I think it's prudent to go through it, but now that we know that we have to provide it on the website as soon as it's given to the rest of the board, then,
Right.
you know, that should remedy that kind of situations.
But
Trustee Archuleta?
Yes, so back to her question, and then to your example that you just provided about, you know, the separate meeting, the city council meeting. So if we ask a question, as she's saying, if we want clarification on an item and we request that clarification and the clarification is provided in writing to all of us, would it suffice to just say that we had a question related to this item and this is the information that was provided? Or is it, as she's saying, necessary for us to make it available to everyone?
So the Brown Act was amended in 2012 to say that a writing that is distributed to the majority of the members of the board must be made available to the public.
That was the 11th edition, right?
The 11th edition of the Brown Act?
Yeah.
I think it's probably more than that. I mean, the Brown Act is 60 years old, right?
The
So
11th, I think, amendment. That
yeah,
was,
it could be.
yeah.
I mean, it was, you know, and it created a little bit of stir in our circles, because, quite frankly, it's a lot of paperwork sometimes. Yes.
Just to follow up again, because I didn't finish with her second part. My idea is that, and the way I understand it is, if she, as Trustee Zia, proposed 17 questions to the Vice President of Admin Services about the purchases that were enclosed attached to the agenda item that night. This is separately through an email. Anne Marie Gable responds to her. She's been asking for that document to be included with the agenda items. I am not comfortable going back to board docs and adding more agenda item detail. Then she asked for it to be put in the minutes. Our policy is not verbatim minutes, and I know that it's available to the public. I totally know that. So if anybody wants a copy of the spreadsheet and the answers and the questions that Vice President Gable gave her,
Right.
just as we have here, the public is welcome to it. But we do not go back and add it to these documents as part of the background information, but it is available, and they're not included in the minutes because they were not part of the packet as far as me recording the vote, what they
Okay.
voted on.
So, and this is why I love these sessions, because these things are not as easy as they appear. But I do want to ask a follow-up question. So the 17 questions that Ms. Gable answered, the answer goes to Trustee Zia, and the rest of the board is copied so that you all have the same information. So let's look at I'm not going to do it here right now. Let's look at the statute later, if you don't mind, because I'd like to take a look at the letter of the law and what it says, because adding stuff into board docs is different than making it available to the public, which is what I hear you saying.
No,
Right.
I'm doing both. I mean, that's what they would like me to do. I
Right,
would not add it.
Right, and so the question is whether, you know, what's the appropriate way to make it available to the public?
Correct.
And I don't know that the courts have even decided in any cases on this particular issue yet, because it's a new statute, and the technology that we're talking about is sort of new and evolving. So I apologize not to have the answer at the ready. My inclination is, if there is a writing that is given to the rest of the board, a majority of the board, that it should be made available to the public at the meeting, either printed, you know, and set in a pile, or you make an announcement to the public that the board had whatever it is, a memo from Ms. Gable to the board is available for public inspection.
So, Ruben, this is very pertinent, and it's been a challenge previously. So we have this information that is available. How does the public know that we have the information on, in the absence of it being provided on the website, or, and also, what if the public didn't attend the meeting? How do we, if we don't put it on the website, how else are we supposed to provide it to the public who want to know later on if they didn't have some constraints to come to the board meeting or couldn't watch it on television?
Right. So there's an interesting broader issue that you've raised that as a public agency lawyer I struggle with sometimes, because what the law requires at a minimum, even though it's construed broadly, can be different than what an agency decides to do at the maximum because of their own policy reasons, and sort of also within the constraints and the confines of what their abilities are with their staff. Right. I mean, it seems to me like you have a very robust and well-trained professional staff, and so good for you. But not every public agency in the state has the resources that others do, and so they try and find what works best for them. Always make sure you comply with the basic of what the law requires. So some ways around it are people will say, well, I considered X, Y, and Z, or I had a conversation with developer Duran.
Yeah, but that's circumstantial. It's case specific. Like, am I gonna go? I have like 20 questions on the budget. Like, it would be unfair to the public to try to sum it in a paragraph, or not go through the details, because they're dollars and cents that I may not remember that I could recite back.
So let's think about what the Brown Act says the public is entitled to, right? What the public is entitled to is to see and hear everything the board does by way of a collective body making their decisions. So the public is not necessarily entitled to be at your computer with you or on the phone with you while you're going through your decision-making process as an individual board member. But as soon as we start involving more than a majority of the board, then I think, yes, what you're saying comes into play, and we've got to figure out, okay, what does the law require and what does our best practices and our administrative abilities allow for? But with all due respect, I'm not sure that it's so cut and dried or black and white.
Right, but you clarified it that as soon as the majority of the board gets the information, it has to be made available to the
Because
public.
that's the minimum of what the law requires, yeah.
But to be clear, and when this came up recently at a meeting, what happened was Trustee Zia said, I went and asked these questions, and I got these answers, but I don't want to ask them in open session because but I want them to be part of the minutes. Well, they weren't shared with the majority of the board. And so I objected and said, wait a minute, if they're going to be part of the minutes, they could affect my decision-making, but I don't have them. So I don't think they should be part of the minutes. And so it underscores how important it is for the trigger to be when the rest of the board members,
And
majority.
that's the way the law was written. Now,
Excuse me
will-
a second.
Sure.
The rest of the board did have it. They just didn't read it. They had it by 5 o'clock. It's just they didn't have the ability to look at it. So
No,
the correction is that they all received it. It's just they didn't have enough opportunity. And we have the emails. I can
well,
pull
we-
it up if you need to, Mr.
The board got it, but the board got it after the meeting had started.
So, and the
Got-
rule there.
They
so-
didn't
and-
get
and
it. They
here's the
didn't
thing,
read it until after the
All
board.
due respect,
No,
Mr.
no,
Mr.
it-
President, I
it
should have brought my striped shirt.
Yeah.
What I do want to say is what's happening here, and sounds like what happened at your meeting, is actually a very good thing, because it lets the public know that as board members, you are working seriously and intently on the issues of making sure that they are entitled to, they're entitled
Right.
to hear and see what all of you collectively hear and see.
Right. And,
Yes.
this is a great point, because I appreciate Trustee Otto bringing it up, because in the past, I was encouraged not to discuss it publicly and to have a phone conversation beforehand with staff. So instead, I decided to go over it, for probably quite a bit of time to get have the public have the ability to know what was discussed between staff and the rest of the board. In this case, you know, it was more like, okay, how can I be accommodating to the rest of the board's time? If we put it in the minutes, is that allowed as, you know, disclosure, proper disclosure to the public? That's really the question, versus going through each and every one of the questions publicly.
Right, right. You know, again, because the Brown Act doesn't have specific rules about what goes into the minutes, many public agency boards end up having to adopt their own rules to deal with situations either as they come up or sort of prophylactically. President Kellogg wants to say something?
The
maybe?
board made a decision, and the board can make a decision. Again, our minutes are not verbatim, and therefore the request numerous times to insert certain memos or different things. As the chair, I've said, well, if we want to discuss the policy and change the policy and go back to verbatim and account for the budgeting of that, a person doing all that, we can. But the policy at this time for this board is it is not verbatim, and you can't have a hybrid verbatim to where certain memos or certain people.
That would drive the clerk crazy.
Well, yes, it has. And
Well,
And the reason that I chuckle, excuse me, is because I've seen issues like this come up at different boards at different times for many different reasons. And to me, it's all about, okay, let's find a way to balance with, you know, how you do your job as a trustee to the best of your ability, how the public gets to what they're entitled to, how your staff manages their resources and their time. You know, those are things that sometimes it's a fine art and some delicate chemistry, right?
Right, and that's a great point, and that's why I went through each and every one of the items.
Yeah, and sometimes there are
Publicly.
meetings where that's necessary.
Because we don't have it in verbatim minutes, and we could certainly change that, but, you know, so that there is no perception that we're conducting business, the public's business privately. I went through it line by line, but maybe I'm just trying to come up, see if there's more effective or efficient ways so that my colleagues who in the past have been upset with a lot of lengthy time spent on the questions so that the public has the right to know are also accommodated, but at the same time we're, you know, doing our due diligence and
Right,
our
exactly.
job.
So how do we strike that balance?
Right.
No, I wish there were easy answers, but sometimes there's not.
Well, I mean, as a practice, I know that not just me, but other board members try to, for a reasonable time before the board meeting, talk to, with the permission of the superintendent president, if that's needed, the vice president that is responsible for that area, and get answers to questions. And then I don't go through the arduous and complicated process of reducing that to writing, then circulating it to all the board members. But I've got some information that I needed to help make a good decision.
Right.
And I think it makes the meetings run more efficiently.
Right. Right. And again, those are issues that as board members, you sort of come into a comfortable way that you do your job. You know?
And by the way, sometimes there will be answers to questions that I'm not satisfied with, and therefore I will, as a rule, not always followed, but generally followed, tell whoever is giving me the information, I'm not comfortable with that answer, and I'm going to ask these questions at the meeting just as a heads up, so that I'm not playing a gotcha game. I'm playing what I'm trying to do is get the information that I need to make the best decisions that I can, without taking up time unnecessarily at meetings to get so much information that may or may not even be relevant.
Right. And the whole concept of the gotcha game is, and I sort of smile and smirk when I hear it, because again, I've seen it, throughout the entirety of my career. There, some boards and their staffs develop a very effective, comfortable way of interrelating and communicating, and some it takes a little while longer. Certainly, you're within your rights as a board member to ask pointed questions, to ask to meet with staff ahead of time. As a matter of fact, going to what you said, it's not uncommon for city managers or school district board presidents or superintendents, to ask that, yes, if you could, do us the favor of giving us your questions ahead of time so that we can get you your answers in enough time for you to be able to make your decisions. and we don't necessarily have to try and answer a question on the fly at the meeting because it might require research or some time to find the answer.
Right.
And again, those are things that we try and balance, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with you, with the caveat that the information be provided with to the public, like you said. The information that was not provided to the public, so it was a way to correct that and remedy that. Look, we didn't post it on the agenda, we didn't add it to the website, we didn't provide it on the out here, so that is an attempt to correct and remedy what we should have done. So, which is fine. I mean, this is all a learning experience for us. But I personally feel extremely uncomfortable picking up the phone and having a verbal conversation where the public is not privy to, and then say, look, I've got my answers to my questions. This is just a difference of opinion. It's not right or wrong, but it's just my comfort level because I feel that the public has a right to know, and also they may not know I even had that conversation. So I mean, those questions have to be sunshine for the public to know, and it's not a matter of necessity or not. It's like whatever dialogue we have, the public has the right to know.
And I think, as Trustee Zia just said, I mean, that's a very personal decision for her, and that's, certainly you're an elected official, you're entitled to make that decision. It's a little different than what the law requires, as we've discussed. The law requires if a writing is given to a majority of the board before the meeting, then it be made available
Right.
to the public. And again, those are all,
Which
those are
we
all-
haven't clearly done that we need to do here. In this, we'll have to take on that practice. So that
And again, I think that we should talk about, whether it was actually provided to the board. And again, the idea here is,
we just had one today actually about budget. So it was provided, and I think you all got it. So it was provided yesterday. So that means that we have to just make it available to the public at the board
sure,
meeting.
at the board meeting,
Yeah.
most certainly. Yeah. We talked about the regular meeting descriptions. Let's talk about, we talk a lot about the public and what they're entitled to, and the Brown Act is very clear that any member of the public is entitled to attend any open meeting of the public agency.
So
And
that's
to
why,
address
that's why
the
you
matter.
have this picture? Any person, anytime? I mean, normally people
You
show
know,
up
who
in
knows what that
bathrobes.
gentleman was saying, or to whom, or for what reason, but, I think the point of the picture is, take them as they come, and take whoever they are. I know some bodies have sign-in sheets, and
do.
that's a good practice, but it's not required by the Brown Act. And it's actually illegal to tell somebody you can't attend the meeting because you refuse to sign in, or you can't speak to the board because you refuse to sign in and give us your name. Anybody can attend, and they don't have to tell you who they are or why they're there or where they live or anything like that. They're entitled to watch. Yeah. I always wonder if that's really his hair. Special meeting may be called by the president of the board or majority to discuss a particular item that essentially can't wait until the next regular meeting, or it should just have its own special place. The posting requirements for a special meeting are, I'm sure you guys all know this, 24 hours. Excellent. So if you're not able to post within 24 hours of a regular meeting, you just move your regular meeting date, and so make sure you comply with that requirement. It's a very strict requirement. The notice, we call it the notice and call. So the notice and call of the special meeting actually serves as the agenda. The Brown Act doesn't have special rules about what a special meeting agenda should look like or what should be on there. As it happens, what practically happens is the board president will say, hey, we're going to have a special meeting on June 25th. Here's the item to be discussed, and make sure that it gets delivered to all the board members and to people who request notice of it, and your press typically. I'm not sure, President Kellogg, what your practice here is at the Community College District. I've seen public bodies that allow members of the public to address any issue that they want anytime the board is meeting, special meeting or not. Is that what you do here?
We have an area for agenda items and non-agenda items.
Okay. Also on a special meeting agenda? Right. That's where I was getting to, is the law requires only that you allow comments on the special meeting agenda item that's been noticed. You can disallow comments on anything else. In other words, you don't have to have a general public comment section at a special meeting agenda.
I
But
was
some bodies do. I personally think it's not a good practice
I was
because it
just
takes
gonna
away
ask-
from the whole purpose of a special meeting.
And I was going to ask you the definition of what we're talking about on a special meeting, so I
Yeah,
could
talking
answer
about
that.
special meetings.
Hey, Ruben, can I ask a question
Sure.
about the public's participation? We have about, we allocate 3 minutes per person. Correct me if I'm wrong, President Kellogg. So if a person has comments on like 10 items, or I'm sorry, if there's 10 people on that item, we divide it up amongst those 10 people. So it's not necessarily 3 minutes per person. It may get to be less. It's up to 3 minutes. Is that something that is okay, or is it permissible by law, or what is some of the best practices that so that we can allow, like you said, it's construed broadly for the benefit of the public? How can we have it be better, or how can we provide that to the public so they don't feel, I've heard that from a few members of the public, that they feel limited in their public expression.
I know some of them feel very limited.
Yeah.
It is currently 20 minutes per subject. or
Sorry,
three-
yeah, per 20 minutes. Thanks, Jeff.
If we have 20 people show up, we can expand it, which we have done in the past, if the board wishes to do that.
Right.
But
All acceptable under the Brown Act. I mean, the only thing the Brown Act requires is that the public have the opportunity to comment on agenda items during or before the board's consideration of the item. So the Brown Act doesn't say anything about the amount of time, the order in which you do it, other than you can't take the vote and then let them talk about it, right? It has to be before or during your decision. And in terms of best practices, quite frankly, I've seen it run the full gamut of what you just described to me, 20 minutes max per item in terms of public comment. I've seen it where public comment is split up into 2 sessions, one at the beginning of the meeting and one at the end of the meeting for non-agenda items. I've seen it where the public must give all of their comments, even on agenda items, at the very beginning of the meeting, because that's in compliance with the Brown Act. It really depends on each individual board and their policy preferences.
Okay.
And
So
3 minutes is not uncommon at all. I've been to places where it's 1 or 2 minutes, and some places have 5.
Well, ours varies because if there's like, let's say 100 people, but it's, on an agenda item, how are we going to deal with that? And are we setting ourselves or restricting ourselves for possible litigation for the adequacy of
No,
the
that's a good
or-
question. And what the law does is it gives us some flexibility to work within its minimum requirements, and then what also works for the public agency. In other words, if there's 100 people that come to discuss an agenda item, it's obviously a hot topic, right? Do we really think that each of those individual 100 people is going to say something entirely different than the other 99 people? Or do we think that there are going to be some repetitive themes that are coming up? And there are no clear-cut answers on this. What I've seen happen is I've seen presiding officers say to the 100 people, we want to hear everything you have to say. We also want to get out of here before Thursday afternoon. So if I could, I'd like to ask you to talk amongst yourselves and select 3 or 4 spokespeople. And if that works for you, we'll do that. Now, I've also seen the same board president say, but if you absolutely feel like you have to talk, you have a right to talk, but we're going to limit your time to 45 seconds. And that's completely allowable.
I see. And is it, would you say it's safer practice, so per agenda item that we allocate 3 minutes, just so it's a little bit more specific to the agenda item as we go through it,
Yeah, I
or
wouldn't
is that?
necessarily tie my hands like that. I mean,
Okay.
I would allow to have as much flexibility as possible, just to be sure, but also to be sure that you're meeting the minimum requirements, right? It's not going to be very often where you get more than 3 or 4 people who want to speak on an item, I'm assuming, although I don't know what your public's like. Is it often that you
We
get more
have
than 3 or 4?
we have the variety of.
Just want to make it clear what is on our agenda. We allow public comments before closed session items, and it's 3 minutes per speaker, 20 minutes per subject, and the same for public comments on agenda items.
Open session.
And then another session on non-agenda items, 3 minutes per speaker, 20 minutes per subject.
That's very, very standard, I've seen exactly that formulation in lots of places.
Okay,
But,
good.
you know, for the occasional aberration where there are 100 people, the law says, hey, you know, the presiding officer has some leeway to make sure that the business gets done and that the public is accommodated.
Okay, good.
Which we've done.
Yeah. And, you know, quite frankly, I like it. You know, I like the fact that the law doesn't sort of tie our hands so rigidly that we can't do our business, and also that the public feels like they're getting a chance to speak, you know?
Right. No, I agree.
Continuance.
And a good presiding officer will watch what's going on and make sure that people are feeling like they've had the opportunity, and at the same time, not provide so much time that people are repetitive,
Right.
the deliberating body or the public is getting tired and affecting the ability to make good decisions based
Right.
on information, so.
Right. And some bodies use the comment cards that are filled out prior for the purpose of sort of, you know, organizing and administrating, okay, you know, we've got 16 people here that are in favor of Proposition X or whatever it is. We've got 2, you know what I mean? So you sort of try and make sure
Right.
that the meeting is run as smoothly as possible while respecting the public's right to speak and hear.
Actually, it's not bad for people in the chair when people make the comment about they're going to speak to item 6.1, and they come to the podium and they're not speaking to item 6.1. The chair does have the ability to shut that conversation down. Now, people may not like that, but the fact is, if they said they were going to speak to a specific item and they were nowhere near it,
Right. And you know, you say, please, you know, when we call 6.1, please come up then to speak.
yeah.
Or if they're talking about an item that's not on the agenda, encourage them to come to that portion of the meeting to speak, right?
Yeah.
That it's, you know, it's always a tricky situation because you want to.
It's a fine line.
You want to, yeah, it's a fine line. You want to be sure that the public feels respected and accommodated, but you also want to make sure that the public's not abusing you or your staff, right? If you're at a regular meeting and it goes until midnight, you decide, okay,